You're listening to Beyond the Couch podcast with Dr. Sally Nazari, where we look at you beyond the couch and build ways to enrich your life, share your triumphs, achieve your goals, and most importantly, where we'll be celebrating you. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Beyond the Couch episode 9, everyone. I'm your host, licensed psychologist and Reiki master teacher, Dr. Sally Nazari, and I'm really excited to continue our Looking at Trauma series. We've looked at some of the ways that PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, can grip us in a sort of bird's-eye view fashion, and we've also examined how mindfulness can help offset this. Today, I'd like for us to explore in more depth how one particular aspect of PTSD disrupts our life, the re-experiencing cluster. So, what exactly does re-experiencing refer to? It's exactly what it sounds like, the sense that whatever scary, overwhelming event we experienced is happening over and over again. The way this can show up for us can include things like nightmares, repeated unwanted thoughts and memories about the event, and flashbacks. A common experience, too, are the physical and somatic responses that tie in with reminders of the event, even when we don't realize we've been reminded of it. Of course, most of us at one point or another can say we've had a nightmare about something unpleasant, or felt like we couldn't stop thinking about or remembering something upsetting, and we may have even felt this in our bodies. In fact, 70% of United States adults, or 223.4 million people, have experienced some kind of trauma at least once in their lives, and up to 20% of these people develop PTSD. 1 out of every 9 women will develop PTSD. What sets apart the re-experiencing aspect of PTSD from that same experience of revisiting a difficult experience again and again is that people with PTSD experience a different level of intensity, frequency, and duration in the re-experiencing of a traumatic event. What this means is that these experiences are often much more distressing and upsetting, happen much more often and more readily, and tend to last much longer as part of the PTSD constellation. Let's take a look at flashbacks as an example. Flashbacks are a common thing we associate with PTSD, but they tend to be one of the less common re-experiencing symptoms. They can be especially scary for a person with PTSD because, unlike our normal memories, a flashback event seems as though it's happening right now, as if replacing the present and current experience. The emotions, physical experiences of images, sounds, smells, tastes, and somatic sensations are all perceived as the same as with the flashback scene rather than the present moment. People experiencing a flashback are generally unable to identify that what they're experiencing is a flashback. Scientists have been able to observe that most flashback episodes are centered on that initial moment that a person first felt the threat of danger. In the throes of a flashback, a person's behavior and actions are congruent with this experience. For them, right now and in the very present, they are feeling very seriously threatened. Remember from our overview of PTSD episode that the hippocampus, our brain region critical in learning and organizing memory, and the amygdala, which is crucial in our fight, flight, and freeze response, are negatively impacted by PTSD. With this in mind, flashbacks and other re-experiencing episodes make sense. Of course, being that flashbacks are one of the less common re-experiencing issues people with PTSD struggle with, let's take a look at some of the other types. We mentioned nightmares, which can focus on pieces of the trauma itself or other distressing, scary, terrifying, or overwhelming situations. Sometimes these nightmares can preclude restful sleep, and for others, there is just a lingering feeling of danger when they awaken. It's also very common for a person with PTSD to have present-day thoughts about the trauma, such as wondering, why did this happen to me? Or, how did I let this happen? Or even continuous thoughts about the way the trauma has harmed their life. In fact, this is often the most common way re-experiencing shows up. The intrusive nature of this, along with the upsetting thoughts and memories themselves, can become very draining, overwhelming, and scary. They often also contribute to and are further amplified by other symptom areas of PTSD, which we'll look at as we continue with the series. Now, immediately following a trauma, re-experiencing is a natural part of recovery and a return back to our lives following the disruption. When re-experiencing, along with the other areas of PTSD, continue beyond the duration of 1 month, we begin to consider whether PTSD is present. It's important to also keep in mind with re-experiencing that these episodes and events can sometimes feel triggered by something specific or seem like they just happened out of the blue. Most people with PTSD don't even know when they'll be met with a trigger, which can add to the fear and confusion. This can also often leave a person with PTSD feeling even further isolated. Some common triggers can include news stories in the media, social media, movies, or TV shows. Sometimes stories that trigger a person can be ones that are similar to their own trauma, but often any form of traumatic event can trigger re-experiencing symptoms. Many triggers include cues that were present during the trauma itself, both externally and internally. For example, colors, tone of voice, certain words, particular types of touch or movement, and even things like specific thoughts, physical sensations, and even emotions. We can imagine that the sense that a horrific event is happening again and again can really be terrifying for and take a toll on someone with PTSD. But keep in mind that re-experiencing alone does not comprise a diagnosis of PTSD. It's important to work with a therapist trained in trauma work if you suspect that you may be encountering re-experiencing symptoms. These symptoms can be reduced with many treatment options. In the interim, grounding techniques are a particular type of coping strategy that serve to connect us immediately to our present experience. They can help people navigating re-experiencing, significant anxiety, dissociation, or even overstimulation. They emphasize using our 5 senses to immediately connect with the here and now. Because of this, they can be considered a variant of mindfulness techniques. I've included access to a powerful one of these in the show notes. I call it the Countdown Coping Technique, and you can easily get full access to a mini ebook describing what the technique is, how and when to use it, and why it helps. You'll see a link for this in the show notes. Grounding techniques will not replace skillful treatment protocols for PTSD, but they can help bridge the gap between seeing a credentialed professional and right now. They may also help enhance your work together. As we keep moving through the Looking at Trauma series, we'll also look at hyperarousal, avoidance, and negative cognitive shifts in PTSD. We'll also integrate our Mindful Monday series along the way. I've really enjoyed starting this series and exploration with you, and look forward to delving even more deeply into PTSD with you coming up. Until then, take care.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Couch Podcast, a space for celebrating you. The contents of this episode are for informational and supplemental purposes only, and not a substitute for professional services. For more access to You Beyond the Couch, check out www.drsallynazari.com.